Okay, on this video, we're going to tackle the inflation calculations on your work chart. I already gave you the answer because I know that the answer is not the most important thing. What's important is for us to know how we get to the answer. So for activity 7, we want to calculate the real value of the financial stock at the end of 20x9. And we bought this financial stock for 50,000 in the beginning of 20x9. Okay, so in the beginning of 20x9, this stock, the CPI there was 105.4. And then at the end, the CPI is going to be 109.2. Now, the reason why this is happening, it's because CPI is always calculated at the end of the year. So when we go into a new year, at the beginning of that year, we haven't made any calculation for that current year, which is why we will take the CPI on the previous year. Hence, on this question, we actually took the CPI 105.4 from 20x8, right? So step number 1 of this calculation requires us to calculate the inflation rate, which is going to be our new CPI minus our old CPI divided by our old CPI, and we multiply everything by 100. So the answer we're going to get here, it's 3.6%. It's rounded off to the nearest one decimal, right? So we then go to step number 2. Now on step number 2, I want you to understand that we always want to work with decimals. We don't want percentages, which is why I'll then take my 3.6% divided by 100, and if you put that value on your calculator, it's supposed to give you 0.036, right? Then here we now want to calculate the impact that this inflation had on the financial stock. So we're going to take our 50,000, divide everything by 1.036, and the answer there is going to be 48,262.55. Now, I know that some of you might be asking, where do we get this one, right? The one here is actually the GDP deflator, right? So whenever we want to see the impact that inflation has on the financial stock, we must always add that one. So whenever you tackle your CPI calculations, never forget to add the one. So you're going to add the one plus your inflation rate. So if I draw a box here, I actually got this number by saying 1 plus my inflation rate, which is 0.036. So now we go to activity 8. Here they're saying that we bought some financial stock for 30,000 in the beginning of 20x7, which is our base year. The CPI index there is 100. Now the question is, what is the real value of the financial stock at the end of 20x9, right? So step number 1 over here. Step number 1, we must get the inflation rate, which is going to be our new CPI minus our old divided by our old, multiply everything by 100, and the answer there is going to be 9.2%. Then we go to step number 2. Now remember, for step number 2, we said that we want to be working with decimals. So I'm going to then take my 9.2% divided by 100, and I'm supposed to get 0.092. Now, I want to get the impact that the inflation rate has on the value of my financial stock, right? So, I'm going to take my 30,000, divide everything by 1,092. Never forget this one, guys. Remember the GDP deflator. We always add the 1. If we punch our calculator, we are supposed to get an answer of 27,472.53. Okay, so now when we go to activity 9, here we've actually made an assumption. We said that in 20x10, the forecasted CPI is 114.7, and we started investing at the beginning of 20x7, which is our base year. But now there's something that I want you to take note of here. They are saying that we have a growth-induced financial asset, right? So whenever you're dealing with a growth-induced financial asset, I want you to understand that we are dealing with an asset that is protected against inflation, right? So here is the calculation. As usual, step number 1, we start with our inflation rate, which is going to be our new CPI minus the old divided by the old multiplied by 100, and your answer there is supposed to be 14.7%. That's your inflation rate. So we go to step number 2. Remember, on this step, we want to be working with decimals. So when we divide the 14.7% with 100, we're going to get 0.147, right? So when I calculate the impact, this is where it differs. Instead of dividing, I am now going to multiply because this is a growth-induced financial asset. Inflation doesn't affect this asset, right? So we're now going to say 20,000 multiply by, remember, 1,147, and this is going to give you the answer 22,940. The last question, which is activity 10. So here they're telling us that at the beginning of 20x9, our salary is 500,000 per annum. So they want us to calculate the real wage at the end of 20x9. Number 1, we all know that we must get the inflation rate, which is going to be our new CPI minus the old CPI divided by the old CPI times 100, and our inflation is going to be 3.6%. We rounded it off to 1 decimal, right? So then we go to step number 2. Remember here we want to be working with decimals. So we will take our 3.6% divided by our 100, and we are supposed to get 0, okay, it's going to be 0.036. Then when we want to check the impact that this thing has, right? Now we want to get the impact. It's the same step. So we're going to say our 500,000 divided, never forget the 1, comma, the inflation rate, which is 0.36. Then it will give you an answer of 482,625.48. Then going to the last question, we must now indicate if we made a profit or a loss. Looking at this real value over here, we can tell that we actually made a loss. But in order for us to get that, we will take our 500,000 minus the 482,625.48, and the answer there is supposed to be 17,374.52.